It was one particular Friday night. It was around 10:30, and we were in a commercial break before we were coming up in the second half of the newscast. And my heart just like went racing out of control. And you know that part of your body, the inside of your body that gets hot and anxious. And then if you've ever had a hot flash, it just comes from the core up, coupled on top of the heart palpitations. And, I said out loud, I work in a studio of men, and I said out loud, if I fall over somebody, can somebody catch me? Kind of half joking, but half like, hey, everyone be aware. Something's wrong. I don't feel right. And so the sports anchor who was in the studio said, hey, I think you should probably get off the set. And so he came over, he walked me to the bathroom, and I literally just collapsed on the floor. It was a really scary moment because I didn't really know what was going on. I later found out that the guy who originally walked me to the bathroom said to me, I thought you were having a heart attack or something, because I knew you were kind of in that age group of women. And, we've done so many stories on women in midlife and heart problems. So long story short, I started going into a deep dive research of what was happening with me. And the first doctor I went to wanted to put me on anti-depressants. And so I went on Lexapro, but it wasn't solving anything else at all.
Welcome to the Good Life Coach podcast. I am your host, Michele Lamoureux. The intention of this show is to awaken you to your fullest potential. Join me each week for inspiring interviews to elevate an area of your life, as well as interviews with women entrepreneurs who are creating success on their own terms. Each episode provides actionable tips to guide you to design a life you love. Hey there, it's Michele Lamoureux, and welcome back to the Good Life Coach podcast, a show for women in midlife who want to live happier, healthier, and more fulfilled lives. I am so excited today. We've got Tamsen Fadal on the show, and we're going to be talking about menopause. Now, Tamsen is a primetime news anchor in New York City. She's been doing that for the last decade. She's an entrepreneur and a menopause advocate and champion for women in their prime. She's also the host of the podcast Coming Up Next, which is about unlocking your bold. And she's the author of an amazing book called The New Single, Finding, Fixing, and Falling Back in Love with Yourself After a Breakup or Divorce. And I last connected with Tamsen when she was on talking about this book, and that was in 2019. Welcome back, Tamsen.
It is hard to imagine how long it's been. Nice to have you, or nice to be with you.
Well, you're usually hosting.
So have me. It's nice for you to have me. I'm not used to it. I'm usually doing interviews on television, so I love this. I feel very relaxed.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. That makes me so happy. Well, yeah. I have been following you since we connected, and I noticed in the last year or so, some of your content started shifting towards menopause, and you became very vocal about your experiences. And I'm going to be having some doctors who, focus on this stuff to talk about the clinical side. But it's what you're sharing is so empowering, because you're like a peer for all of us women in midlife who just nobody talks about it. And we're so confused, and most of us don't even know what to look for. And I think, that was your situation, Tamsen. Can you tell us, what was going on with you, and how did this become a focus of some of the work that you're doing in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it came from a personal experience of what happened to me when I was in the news studio, and I was in there, and it was 10:30. I'd been having a lot of brain fog, but I didn't really know what it was. I just knew that I was having a hard time processing words on the teleprompter, and so that was a concern, but I didn't know what it was. I knew I'd been moody. I knew that I was just, not sleeping well. And it was one particular Friday night. It was around 10:30, and we were in a commercial break before we were coming up in the second half of the newscast. And my heart just went racing out of control. And that part of your body, the inside of your body that gets hot and anxious. And then if you've ever had a hot flash, it just comes from the core up, coupled on top of the heart palpitations. And, I said out loud, I work in a studio of men, and I said out loud, if I fall over somebody, can somebody catch me? Kind of half joking, but half like, hey, everyone be aware. Something's wrong. I don't feel right. And so the sports anchor who was in the studio said, hey, I think you should probably get off the set. And so he came over, he walked me to the bathroom, and I literally just collapsed on the floor. And I remember I was laying there, I was like, my face is looking at the toilet. The floor's so filthy, by the way, in any bathroom, but particularly, I'm like, end of the night, how disgusting.
Oh
And I couldn't, there was nothing I could do. I was like, I was like, I don't care. I'm in my dress, and now my boss comes downstairs like, are you okay? So they're both like, are you okay? Coming into the bathroom. And I said, I don't know what's wrong, and, it was a really scary moment because I didn't really know what was going on. I later found out that the guy who originally walked me to the bathroom said to me, I thought you were having a heart attack or something, because I knew you were kind of in that age group of women. And, we've done so many stories on women in midlife and heart problems. So long story short, I started going into a deep dive research of what was happening with me. And the first doctor I went to wanted to put me on antidepressants. And so I went on Lexapro, but it wasn't solving anything else at all. I had not gone I had gone 12 months without a period. I did not realize I had gone 12 months without a period because I had endometrium polyps. And so I had had surgery before, but it caused excessive bleeding for me, the polyps. So I bled. I still bleed, as a result of that, because I still have, polyps. And so I never really went 12 months, or I didn't realize I did, without bleeding. So I had no idea I was in menopause. And I went to an endocrinologist. I went to and got blood work done that did confirm that. I went, and then those were sent over to my gynecologist. My gynecologist wrote, in menopause, any questions, and sent my sheet with all my blood work. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm in menopause. And I remember I was in the airport in Tampa, and I don't know, I didn't know enough about menopause at the time. So all I thought is it's all over. I just had no idea, what this meant. It just didn't sound great, and I knew it was the end of the time I could reproduce, even though I don't have any children, and I hadn't had intentions of having them for a long time, in the latter part of my midlife. And so, I went into a place where I was doing a lot of my own research and trying to figure out what to do. And I finally came across a midlife specialist who helped me understand, after supplements and lots of different natural ways to do things, that it was time for me to sort something else out and to figure it out. And being somebody who lost a mother to breast cancer when she was very young, the idea of hormones were very scary to me because I didn't have the right information. And I eventually did get the right information, and I went on hormone replacement therapy. And so currently I'm about 1.5 years into that, and it's made remarkable changes. It doesn't change everything, but it has changed a lot of the major symptoms. And one of the big ones was the brain fog that was really debilitating to me, especially at work.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there's going to be women listening who are going to go, oh, wait, that's been my experience, where they had symptoms. No one was really talking to them. You go to the doctor. And I've heard that's pretty common, that you're asked,
Sure.
you're suggested to get not birth control, antidepressants or, some other solution, but not being just having hormone replacement therapy or even just acknowledgement. This is just a natural part of life, but part of the natural part of life is a lot of uncomfortable symptoms. Now, one of the things that you shared, I saw, was that there were how many? Up to what, 30 something, how many symptoms can show
34 is what's, kind of the norm, but there is a nutritionist out of Canada, and she said there's up to 84 plus, and that would not surprise me.
Okay. So give us some of the ones that, give us a handful of symptoms. What are the things that actually are going on that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, hot flashes, night sweats, heart palpitations, anxiety, mood swings, itchiness of the skin, burning of the tongue, itchy ears, hair loss. A lot of times, dryness, vaginal dryness, loss of desire to have sex. There's a range of symptoms that go into the category of dry skin. Obviously, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that people talk about. Oh, well, weight gain is a big one. Right around the middle. So those are symptoms that are the most common symptoms. And then when you go down the list, there's a lot of other additional things that, people have that are not quite as norm, but have really been shown to be signs of this, and this is a time in our lives that we're dealing with so many other things, work,
totally,
and maybe aging parents, or maybe kids leaving home. And so just couple all those things on top of all those other things. And, you've got quite the recipe for, needing some help.
Absolutely. And I think that, women, for whatever reason, aren't really talking about this stuff. And then if you go to the doctor and they're not validating it or giving you any sense that, this is normal, but there's going to be a range of symptoms, women handle it or experience it, I should say, not handle it differently. And that this is, something we can work together on. If there were more information out there, I think people would feel better about talking about it. And I think the conversation's changing. Sure. And I think a big part of that is from the work that you're doing. I've seen you feature a lot of big names, in this space. Was it like Naomi Watts, Davina McCall? I've watched those interviews, and you don't even know what to be looking out for and then when to have these conversations. So based on your experience, at what point would you say, would you go to your gynecologist?
I think it depends on who you're most comfortable with. A lot of doctors really don't have, have not really been specifically trained in this area. And there are reports that some doctors have had about 4 hours of training in menopause, specifically in menopause. And a lot simply don't feel comfortable talking about hormone replacement. So I first of all, I think if I had to do it all over again, I would be doing my own research, and I would be listening to some of the people that are out there talking about it. And there's a lot of doctors that talk about it. And there's a lot of experts out there. Yeah. I wouldn't listen to everybody. But I would try to there are about 20 names of doctors out there that you see over and over again. The North American Menopause Society is another place to go if you want to plug in your zip code. Yeah. It's NAMS, NAMS. Okay. And NAMS has a zip code finder, so you can find somebody that is it has this midlife training, midlife wellness training, but also might be in your area. And then there's a number of different different companies that are doing things. So people that might not be in an area that is close to somebody with a doctor that has specific training like this, that they can access. My Alloy is one of those companies.
What is it called,
and
Tamsen?
They really
what was that?
work with Alloy, ALLOY.
Okay.
And they're telemedicine. And so you're able to get online and access somebody that can prescribe whatever you would need depending on where you are in this process.
Yeah.
But I would also, close to home, try to make sure that whoever you're talking to, you're armed, one, with the right questions that you should ask and what you should know. Two, that you let them know what your symptoms are and you keep track of those. And three, make sure it's somebody that you trust that also feels comfortable talking about this. Because if your symptoms are dismissed, as in when it happened to me, and I'm certainly not alone, but when it happened to me and it's happened to a lot of other people, like, yeah, you're depressed, jump on Lexapro and all should be good because your serotonin levels will all be fixed. That didn't help my hot flash. That didn't help my night sweats. That didn't help my lack of desire to have sex. It actually caused a worse problem there. It didn't help any of the things that the lack of estrogen in my body was causing. Oh, joint pain's another symptom. I was just thinking of that. Yeah. My head is going through the other 30 of them. Yeah. But I think that you really have to find somebody that I feel like it's important to have as much information as the doctor does, because you know your body better than anybody. I think it's important, and part of my mission is to advocate and empower women so they are not afraid to ask their own questions. Even my dad, he's 83 years old now, and sometimes he goes into his cardiologist and he's like, well, the doctor said, and I go, no, but what did you tell the doctor? Like, you have to be in charge of that. You have got to be in charge of that. So I regret the first, year that I was going through it, that I really wasn't taking control. And I was like, okay, I'll go on antidepressants if you think that's it. That really wasn't it. And I would say in your early 40s should be, we have a baseline for mammograms. I think we should establish, maybe it's our own self-regulated baseline to say, look, I know every woman in the world is going to go through this. I know eventually I'm going to go through this at some part in the second half of my life. Tell me where I am in this process. Do you want to give me a blood test? Do I need to regulate my periods? There's apps to do that now that make it super easy. If you do have something like I had, and a lot of women have, which might be uterine polyps, endometrial polyps, endometriosis, and you're bleeding differently, you might have to you might have to look at things a little bit differently.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more that you need to be your own best advocate when you're dealing with the medical community. These people mean well, they're well trained, but some of the training, as you said, is limited. And also you get 10 or 15 minutes. And I think this is also shifting, but there is a tendency when it comes to women to diminish what they're telling the doctor, the doctor will diminish the symptoms as, oh no, you're overreacting, or, I've heard other doctors come on and say, yeah, patients are being gaslit to some degree. And so the more information you have, the better. I could not agree with that more.
Yeah.
Now, what were some of the things that you did? You said you did your own research. So before you got on the hormone replacement therapy, I'm just curious, like, what did you do, like holistically or otherwise, with supplements to start feeling better? Anything? And also, I'll just say, Tamsen's not a doctor. This is I'm not a doctor for entertainment and educational purposes, but let's just hear what your experience was. Yeah.
Yeah. I always say that, when I do a lot of videos about it, and I always preface it with that, because what's going to be right for me might not be right for somebody else. But I really did a deep dive into the different kind of supplements. And one of the doctors actually did say, like, oh, you should just, go on black cohosh and you'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll help with the hot flashes. Take maca will be fine. So I've done a couple of those different things, and I don't think that they don't work at all. I mean, I think that they were a supplement for me, supplement for what I needed, which was to replace my estrogen. Some people cannot take hormone replacement therapy. They just can't do it. And so in that case, they have to use some of these different ways, to get relief. So black cohosh is one I did. I make a smoothie every morning, which is, I call it my hot girl smoothie, because it cools me off, because it's got ice and cold blueberries in it, but it also has maca powder. It has vitamin D in it. It has a lot of protein. I've changed my diet up quite a bit in my workout, compared to where I was 10 or 15 years ago. And so it's got blueberries in it for brain health. It's got milked almonds, so I don't have like the almond milk with the sugar in it. And I'm missing something. I can't remember what. Oh, it has a scoop of greens, because the greens have really helped with the inflammation in my body. So food, exercise routine has changed in adding those supplements. And I also have a neck fan, which I don't have out here with me, but it looks like headphones, and it's got little fans blowing out of each side of it. So that's been a lifesaver for me.
Yes. And not having gone through it. So just help me. So you didn't have a period for 12 months. So are you still in menopause? And how long does menopause last?
Yes. So there's three stages of it. There's peri, there's menopause, which is literally the day after, the 24 hours after you have not had a period for 12 months.
Yes.
And then everything else is post-menopausal, but we just refer to it as menopause. So you're post-menopausal essentially the rest of your life. That doesn't mean that you're going to go through all of these symptoms for the rest of your life, but there could be peaks of them. I was actually speaking online to a woman who's 63, and she said, I thought all my symptoms were gone, and then all of a sudden I had a hot flash, and she's like, I'm so upset. But a lot of the major symptoms that you get, when you're in the height of perimenopause into menopause, are not quite as severe as they are down the line. But that's the one thing. We are in it for a third of our lives, if not more, and now probably a half of our lives, considering longevity.
Okay. So you still experience symptoms, but not to the extent like where it puts you on a bathroom floor, just needing to lie down, right? You're not there anymore. You're
absolutely.
way past that. Yeah.
No, I'm, I still have, the estrogen has really helped. The progesterone has helped me sleep. I was, at a point where I was literally I was up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and not, sleep for 1 hour, 2 hours. And that can be just a brutal grind, because you just can't function, at that point.
Yeah. Were you not sleeping because you were too hot?
It was just, lack of sleep, night sweats. I would have the sheets on, off, your leg. There's some funny videos on TikTok, but it's like, your leg is in, it's out, it's in, it's out. And so, I went, oh my gosh, that's what happens to me. So the progesterone's definitely helped with my, sleeping for sure.
Okay.
And my husband's.
Yes.
Because he's not he doesn't have the blaring light of the cell phone on while I'm trying to watch Netflix, because I can't fall asleep. So on the other side of the bed.
Well, I think that's an important part of the equation, because if women aren't aware of these symptoms and what's happening to them, there's no way that their partners have any clue, especially if the doctors are just saying you're just depressed, take an antidepressant, and they're not creating solutions. It shows that it's important for women to be having these conversations. there's no shame in the game. Like this is just a natural part of
Yes,
life,
100%.
right? But people are all going to experience it differently, and seek out the providers that can help you. You mentioned that you changed the way you exercise and the way
Yes.
you're eating. So what, more protein and fiber? Like
Yeah.
what is different? Like what did you learn about what we
Well, I
need to be
really had to
doing?
up my protein.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
I need
I
to do
really, I'm
that.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, same. Yeah.
I had to up my protein,
Yeah.
and that was hard because I don't eat meat, and so I will eat fish now as a result of this. I've gone back to seafood, which I'm not totally a fan of, but I just kind of do it. Um, but I'm trying to like wean back off that now. So I just get the protein in there because sometimes it's hard to go into if you're going to eat out, and because of work, a lot of times I'm eating, at the office, but, I've upped my protein. I've really tried to cut down on my white sugars and carbs. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. I cheat a lot,
So
but
hard.
those things don't make me feel better. And
Yeah.
and it's not weight gain. It's more like they just make me feel like crap. And I do a green drink in the morning. It's like a little shot of greens just to get that in my body and try to reduce inflammation. And then I do intermittent fasting. There's pros and cons to it. I don't do it on the weekends. I do it Monday through Friday. So I have a little bit of just kind of routine in my week to get
Yeah.
it going right, especially when I'm working a lot. And then the other thing that I do with my workout, I used to be a big cardio person. I'd get on there and be like, okay, if I work out and I knock off 600 calories on the treadmill, I'll be able to eat. And, I did this cycle back and forth, and it was really not helpful in terms of the weight gain in perimenopause or menopause. So I'm a big advocate of yoga and weight training for me. So I weight train 2 to 3 times a week, and I do yoga as much as I can, and I walk. So I'm not a big get on the treadmill for an hour and do cardio. I've really had to change that up. And I thought, are you just selling this to yourself because you really hate doing cardio, or is that really the case? And I think it's really the case.
Yeah. And I've actually heard doctors talk about the benefit of just what you said, less on the
Yes.
the hardcore cardio. It actually works against women in our age, and that just walking, but the weight training is the piece that I hear is so critical. And I used to love doing that, and I haven't. So that's for me a big,
I used to think
important
that was my
takeaway.
cheat day.
I loved weights. I did personal training 5 years ago, and I felt so strong and so good. It was my favorite part, and so if you can do that and walk 30 minutes a day, sometimes the recommendations I think are a little frustrating, like 10,000 steps. Have you done that? That's like an hour and a half.
I try. I do it on the weekend.
Yes, I can do it on a weekend. Yes. So I say if you can walk 30 minutes.
Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, totally. Okay. So you mentioned estrogen and progesterone, which is the hormone replacement, just for anyone who doesn't even know what we're talking about. Yeah. Hormone replacement therapy is, so what happens? Explain what happens. Estrogen goes down and progesterone
so your
balances things out. Yeah.
Yeah, your estrogen just it just like goes off a cliff. Really, it's like here, and then it's not here anymore.
Yes.
And that's what causes all these things. Estrogen is a lubricant for your body, essentially. And so when you say you have joint pain, when you say you have dry skin, dry hair, dry vagina, all those things are as a result of a loss of estrogen. And so the hormone replacement is made up of estrogen and progesterone. Some people, opt for testosterone. It's not something that I have done yet or know enough about to talk about.
Yes.
But I have a patch that I changed twice, and there's different forms of hormone therapy. But I have a patch that I change on Monday morning and Thursday afternoon, which is the time released estrogen, and then I take a progesterone pill each night. I have breakthrough bleeding because of polyps and other things, so I'm supposed to take a progesterone pill every night. I skip one night a week because of that. And a doctor will regulate that for people individually. But that's my own thing. Other people have it or don't have it, and they're perfectly fine with it. Yeah. And I've just found, there's a cream form of HRT too. I found that for me, this works well and is convenient routine wise. And, the patch sits there, it doesn't really come off. It gets a little gross at the end of the week, and you have glue on your stomach. But other than that, it's worked well for me. Okay.
That's super helpful. Now you did say you did some research. Any particular books that were the most helpful, or websites or people, like what helped?
Yeah, there's been some good ones. With regard to websites, Electra Health is a great source of resource. I
Okay.
love Electra Health. Alloy is great when it comes to telemedicine. Their medical advisory board headed up by Dr. Sharon Malone, whose name you'll see in a lot of these different articles.
Yeah.
I think she's just brilliant. And she just really breaks things down in a very, an understandable way
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor. So whenever I talk to her, I'm like, oh, I get it. And with regard to books, there's a couple of different books. There's one called Menopause Confidential, and that's by Dr. Tara Ullman. There is another book by Dr. Jen Gunter called Menopause Manifesto.
Yes.
There are a lot of different, there's a new book out right now by Dr. Haver, and that is called The Galveston Diet.
Yes.
That's just released. She just came on my podcast.
She did. I reached out to her. She's a rock star.
Good.
Well, I reached out to her. I guess I was reaching out to the wrong PR person and never heard back. And I just found the right one. Isn't that funny? So hopefully she'll come on.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's great. And then Dr. Anna Kabeka has a number of books about hormones, and she wrote one recently called Menopause. So to go from, the diet portion of it and then the informational portion of it. And then if you want to do online, I think Electra and Alloy are great.
Yeah.
Naomi Watts just started a company called Stripes that has a lot of the different products out there.
Yeah.
There's another company called, there's so many of them, so many great companies. There's a company called Weil that has products. There's a company called Kindra that's a great products and resources. Just think off the top of my head. I could probably just send you a list, but those are the ones off the top of my head.
No, that's an amazing place for people to start.
And they're great, women founded companies for the most part. And these are women that have gone through the same things that we've gone through and said, like, we need some answers. So that's where we are right now.
I think our Generation X, the Gen Xers are like, no, we're going to help the other generations. First, we're going to start with ourselves, and we're going to make this a lot easier for the younger generations. We're done with this nonsense of being invisible in this area, especially since half the population is going to experience this, like everyone. Okay, so people can also follow you, Tamsen. Before we wrap up, what is it like? Not to like one thing, but if there were one thing that you wanted to make sure people walked away with from this conversation, what do you want women to know who, may be in perimenopause or menopause?
Gosh, I want them to know more than anything to take control of their health and don't just leave it to chance. I want them to know they're not alone. And I want them to know there are resources out there. I don't care where you're located. I don't care, what you feel like you don't have or what you don't have access to, and that we're working hard to make sure everybody has access to this.
Love it. I love what you're doing, and everyone can follow you, Tamsen, on Instagram because you're constantly posting. And then, people can say, oh, wait, I didn't know itchy skin was one of them. So even though I'm in the early stages, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting that, or like,
oh, good. I'm glad that's helpful.
Oh, it's so helpful. Yeah. And it's validating because, okay, maybe your friends aren't talking about it, but you are. And then it's like seeing a friend, right? It's like, oh, we're peers and she's telling me that this is normal. Now I have more information to go talk to my doctor and to manage this. So, what is coming up next for you, Tamsen?
Coming up next, I have I have a book that is going to be coming out, and I haven't released too much information about it, but it'll be coming out in the next year or so. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
That's like official now. And then I have a documentary that's in the works, and as soon as I can, I get this done, where I'm going to make sure that there's a big splash with it, because I really want this to be something that can help teach all of this together, because I don't have all the information, but we've really gone around and gotten some of the best resources out there to pull together, and then some great women's stories who are kind enough to share their stories with us and willing to share very intimate details of their story. So I'm working on it. My co-producer is Joanne LaMarca, who was with the Today Show for decades, and she has been all about women's health for a long time. And we met over this common bond. And it's just really, really important to us to make sure that people have this access to information. So that's what we're hoping to do, because there's still more changes that have to happen. We still need to have another, we need to have studies that are done to help women, because women are grossly, grossly overlooked right now, especially in this age category when it comes to women's health and wellness.
I love it. And I think that storytelling is one of the most powerful mediums to impact change. So a documentary is going to be brilliant just for people to be able to see a reflection maybe of their experiences on a screen. Is like, you can read the book and take the notes and do what you need to do, but I think there's nothing more powerful than storytelling. So that's
thank you so much.
Super exciting. Okay, so where can people connect with you, Tamsen? Where should I direct them?
Absolutely. Tamsenfadal.com, or just anywhere on social media. I'm trying to post more on YouTube if that's easier for people. Some people aren't on TikTok, but anywhere, Tamsen Fadal. And, if there's something you want and you don't see, let me know, because I don't know what everybody wants, but we're really trying to hit all of those pockets in this space to make sure that women in midlife feel like, they're heard, that they have agency, and that they have a resource, if, that they're not alone in this journey, because menopause is not an easy one.
Thank you so much for being here. It's always amazing to connect with you. You've got such a beautiful heart and spirit, and I am so grateful for the work you're doing in the world. So thank you.
Oh, back at you. Thank you.
All of the show notes for today's interview with Tamsen can be found over at thegoodlifecoach.com. And all of the resources that she mentioned today will be there for you to easily access, along with her Hot Girl Smoothie and her social media pages, so you can learn more about the work that Tamsen is doing. Please share this interview with a friend. I think this conversation around menopause and perimenopause is one that we need to get more comfortable having, and educating one another is such an important part of it. And you can simply do that by sharing this interview as a starting point. Also, if you did enjoy this conversation, please do take a second to rate and review it over on Apple Podcasts, and I'll be sure to share your feedback with Tamsen. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you gained some new information or inspiration for your life. That is the essence of this show, is to really wake up to what's possible for you, to reclaim your beautiful voice, and to really learn to love and prioritize yourself. So if you gained any value from any of the conversations you've tuned into, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. You can do that right now on your phone. And please do consider leaving a rating and review if you have yet to do so on Apple Podcasts. It's actually how more women can find the show, and I really want to grow a community of women who are loving themselves and living full on. So thank you as always for tuning in, and I look forward to reconnecting with you next Wednesday. Bye for now.